a senior in our movement, and he is an amazing devotee. Him and Madhamadri Mataji, I'm very valuable because of them. Basically, I served under them, and then I continue serving under Prabhu and Mataji, taking their guidance and everything without any waste of time. Prabhuji, thank you so much for allowing yourself to be part of ISKCON Pretoria. And then whenever we ask you to come to Pretoria, you're not even thinking twice. You're always there. Thank you so much, Prabhu. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Unfortunately, we're not sure whether you're going to stay in your car for the whole period. But yeah, we hope to get your association again soon. The devotees, because of the COVID situation, even mid-rent program has been cancelled, and I thought, okay, no, let's just have the program. At least we can share some of the points in terms of distraction that can cause destruction. And initially I was thinking maybe we'll just have an interactive. So I would like the devotees to share their screen, maybe not now, once, because of the online, and you can't have a simultaneous kirtan. That's one of the shortcomings of online. You can't have a responsive kirtan. So what I'll do is I'll just play a kirtan first. We can, in your own place, you can chant along. And then what we'll do is we'll start, we'll offer our Mangalachan prayers, and then we'll start the discussion. And at some point, we'll get the devotees to, please share the camera so that we can have a interactive discussion first on this topic. And then I'll share some pertinent verses and see if the devotees can also share some points related to this subject. Okay, so let us start with some kirtan. Janavalabha Girivaradhari Janavalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Raja Nativa Vanacha Yamunatira Vanacha
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha. Jaya Radha Samasundara Samasundara. Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Nitya Go Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba, Hare Ba. Acharya Sudhar Sudhar Divine Guest, Abhachan Bhakti Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Iskan Pramacharya Divine Guest Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jai Vishnu Paparam Sabri Acharya Sudhar Sudhar Shri Divine Guest, Shri Bhakti Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anand Guru Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prince Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sri Gaura Bhakta Ki Jai, Shri Shiva Hare Krishna Gopal Sham Radha Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktavan Ki Jai, Gandharajman Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Bhavanande. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory is to the simple devotees. All glory, Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glory, Shri Prabhupada Ki. Om Jnanatimivandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmei Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Vada Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyam Panchakalpata Rupyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha
Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are going to cover a few quotations from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, based on the teachings by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So before I read some conversations and quotes, I like to, let's say, set the scene in terms of distraction can cause destruction. So it is described that Krishna, he is like fire. And fire has heat and light. So that is one aspect or one energy of Krishna, called the internal energy, the bhakti shakti, the devotional potency. And the personification of this potency is Srimati Radharani. So Krishna is compared to fire. Okay, and the heat and light is one aspect, or is the feature, the energy of heat of fire. So heat and light, fire is composed of heat and light. Then we also have a spark. So from the fire, we also have sparks. But the sparks, they cannot be compared to the potency of the fire. And the sparks are the marginal potencies, you and I, the living entities. We are the sparks. And then the sparks also come out from the fire. Then you have smoke, which also comes out from the fire. And the smoke which comes out from the fire, that is the material energy. So we have the three categories of energies: the material energy, or the external energy in the form of smoke. We have the marginal energy in the form of the living entities. We have the internal energy, which is in the form of fire, or rather in the form of heat and light, which all comes out from the fire. And each of these three categories of energies, the external, the marginal, and the internal, they are all one and different from the fire. The smoke is more different than one. It doesn't have an existence outside the fire, but it's more different from the fire than the marginal entity. The marginal entity is closer to the fire, and the heat and light is more one than different from the fire. And the heat and light, Krishna, so we have the devotional potency, the internal potency, Srimati Radharani. We have the living entities, you and me, and we have the external energy, or Durga. In relation to us, we can associate with the smoke and become covered, or we can associate with the fire and intensify our natural potency of fire in nature or devotional nature. So our objective in spiritual life, in Krishna consciousness, is to go into the heat and light and the fire and associate with Krishna. We don't want to be distracted and go into the smoke. and become covered. And there are many aspects and elements that can distract our attention and ultimately cause us to be destroyed or cause destruction. The destruction is not in terms of our existence. We can never cease to exist, because in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has already made it very clear that the living entity is eternal. He's nitya, he's eternal. And because the living entity is eternal, he can never be destroyed. But what can happen is that if that spark goes into the smoke and gets so consumed by the smoke, his existence becomes so covered that it's practically like he ceased to exist. So that's the challenge, and that's what we want to avoid. So we're going to be covering the aspects, and we cannot exhaustively cover, but at least briefly we'll cover the different aspects that cause distraction and how to avoid some of these aspects. All right, so what I like to do first is read 2 quotes, and then we'll have a discussion. So this is a lecture on Bhagavad Gita and a talk. And during the talk, Vishnujan Swami asked Srila Prabhupada, when we engage in spreading Krishna consciousness by the singing or selling back to Godheads or speaking with people, if through our senses like seeing or hearing or touching and smelling, our mind gets distracted, even while we engage in selling back to Godheads, then how can we always return to that point of remembering, even though our senses are being dragged by billboard signs and so many? Prabhupada, no. Suppose you are selling back to Godhead. Does it not remind you of Krishna? Does it not remind you about Krishna? What are you selling back to Godhead? You could sell another popular magazine, which could sell very nicely, quickly, thousands of copies. Why you have taken this back to Godhead? For Krishna. You are not for business. You are not ordinary. I mean to say newspaper seller. Why you have taken back to Godhead? Your motive is that people may know about Krishna. That is a motive. If magazine selling is your business, you can take any other sense category magazine. There are many, there's so many, and you can sell, you can make some profit. So we have to mold our life in such a way that we shall always remember Krishna. Therefore, remembering Krishna is my primary business. And we have to act in such a way that we may not forget Krishna. That should be the principle. That is the secret. Therefore, it is equally good for anyone, because we can engage anyone in the business of Krishna. If somebody has no, knowledge, he can simply sweep over the floor of Krishna's temple. That will make him remembering Krishna, that I am cleaning the floor of Krishna's temple. He is as good as the editor of Back to Godhead. So in comparison, this analogy that I gave, this spark, which is the living entity, in relation to what Srila Prabhupada said, for us not to get distracted, what did Srila Prabhupada say what Srila Prabhupada says that should be the objective for us not to be distracted, not to be covered by the smoke? What is the primary objective of not to be distracted? If you want to unmute, you can also unmute, or you can type in the chat. What does Srila Prabhupada tell us as the main objective that tells us we are not distracted? You can unmute or you can type in the chat.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so I think what Srila Prabhupada is saying that we should always keep our minds focused and always remember Krishna.
Good, very good. And second, Prabhupada also said we should always remember Krishna. So that's the first lesson. Okay. Distraction means you have forgotten Krishna. When we want to avoid distraction, it means I want to avoid any aspect that stops me from remembering Krishna. Keep Krishna in the mind. If I can keep Krishna in the mind, I'm not distracted. Okay, good. Let's move on to the next conversation. Prabhupada says, so this one is a little more difficult than the first one. First one was a little easy. Okay, so we know now what distraction means. Distraction means I forgot Krishna. Prabhupada says, so one side there is no rain, one side there is no rice, especially in India, and one side heavy tax. So they'll be all confused. They have already become confused. So in the confused state, it'll be very difficult to make them Krishna conscious. Therefore, preliminary help should be given. And Vishnu Jan Swami says, preliminary, and Prabhupada says, yes, that should not be, yes, that they should not be in chaos or confusion. Otherwise, how will the brain work? Vishnu Jan Swami says, yes, no one can give rapt attention without peace of mind. Prabhupada, yes, yes. Our main aim is how to give them Krishna consciousness. But if they're already disturbed in every respect, then how they'll take it. Therefore, we are taking these subjects to help him come to Krishna consciousness. And this is the method, Varnashram. Okay, so now taking this in context, in relation to the spark, what does Srila Prabhupada tell us this in relation to his conversation and in relation to the spark, so that we do not become distracted? Let's see if you can get this one. In relation to the conversation, what does Srila Prabhupada tell us that we should do or we should have so that we don't become distracted? Shama says, so Sagran says we should have peace of mind first. Good, okay. Keep focus on devotional service. Okay. Any others? Shamananda Prabhu says the spark should be nicely situated so it cannot fizzle out. Example, but burn stronger. Very good. Puvendran says chant the holy name and take prasad. Okay, good. So Shamananda Prabhu has it more focused. Navkishori says chant the holy name attentively, so it helps. Now, in relation to Prabhupada's conversation, which is what we were talking about, Shamananda Prabhu's point is more appropriate, that we need to be nicely situated. Okay? We need to be nicely situated. What does that mean? That means at least materially, I should be well situated. For example, now I'm not sure if everyone can share their camera, that'll be great. Because so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we'll come back to my screen. And if everyone can share their screen, that's great, because then we can see each other and that keeps us a little focused. Okay. And when you want, if you want to speak, you can obviously unmute yourself, and then you can mute again, so that there's no noise. And if you, if it there's in Zoom also, if you go to your camera, you can also choose a background. So if you don't want a background, concern about the background, etc., then you can also change the background. Otherwise, no problem. So what I'm going to do is, in terms of Prabhupada's point, how many of you would feel distracted or disturbed if you lost your job right now? How many of you would feel distracted or disturbed if you lost your job right now? Or would you be very peaceful, no problem, things are nice, Krishna's mercy, life goes on? So Amrit Bika says yes, and raised his hand. Very good. You can also raise your hand. You can also make like this, those that have your cameras on. Shamananda Prabhu says yes. Gurudas says yes. Madhachanusigi says yes. Wilbit Shama says yes. Tanuja says definitely. Gurudas says I would. Segran says would be disturbed. Navkishore says definitely. Puvendran says yes. So that is the point Srila Prabhupada is making. That we want to be at least materially situated nicely. Without that, if somebody doesn't have a job, they don't have food in their belly, and then you go tell them, think of Krishna, they're going to tell you, hey, go fly a kite. I'm not interested. Give me food. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying we need to, at least individually, we need to be at least some sort materially situated nicely. That means, I have a reasonably good job. I have food on the table. I've got a roof over my head. And with that, I can at least focus and not be distracted. If somebody says, Prabhu, you're not the body, you're a spirit soul, therefore you don't need to worry about, roof and food and, job. Well, unfortunately, they don't understand the philosophy properly. You must be somehow materially situated so one can build on that. One can focus. Now, it does not mean that if I have a good job and, let's say a very well-paying job, roof over my head, big roof over my head, opulent food on the table, that I will not be distracted. But at least I should have this as a basis. And once I got that, I can be grateful to Krishna that, thank you, my Lord, at least now I can build on that and move forward so that I don't become distracted. Okay. And that is why we should try our best according to our skills so that we can do what we need to do in the material sphere, become materially situated. If we have the ability, we can extend that so that other devotees can become materially situated. Okay? Because it is a need of the body and the mind for us to be materially well situated so that we can focus on Krishna. Now I like to ask from the devotees, we covered the analogy, we covered few aspects that Srila Prabhupada refers to in terms of what can be what is distraction. The question I have now is, let us look at the distraction point. So what is destroyed? We said distraction can cause destruction. So what is the destruction in relation to? What is the destruction in relation to? Okay, you can unmute. or you can, the devotees, I think you can unmute. Oh, hold on, right. You can unmute now, sorry. You should be able to unmute now. Try now. Can someone test to see if you can unmute?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, okay, good.
Hare Krishna.
All right, yeah. Okay, good. So let's see some of you, in relation to the body, spiritual life, the body needs our spiritual life, anxiety and stress. Okay, good. So destruction means our spiritual life, that journey that the soul needs to go into the fire gets obstructed and moves in the opposite direction. So distraction can take you in the opposite direction that we want to go. Our goal is pure love for Krishna. And if I go in the opposite direction from that, that's destruction. And distraction can lead to that. Now, pure love of Krishna is very, very far. It's a very, very exalted and far goal. Here we are in the material world, conditioned state, and the goal is pure love of Krishna, pure prema bhakti. So my question now is, what is a sub-goal? What is a practical sub-goal based on Shastra, based on Rupa Goswami, based on nectar devotion? I'm conditioned, I'm in the material world, my goal is pure love of Krishna. That's a far goal. I want to bring it to a more practical goal, which I call a sub-goal from scripture. What do you think that is? I thought it's easier just to say. People, devotees like to type.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prahlad.
Haribol. I think we need Sangha in order to reach, to develop our devotional service for the Lord.
To develop our devotional service, good. Okay, some devotees also said, so Shama says, integrate devotional service in our life. Prabhu says devotional service. Tanuja says chanting. Gurudas says serve the devotees. Sagran says engage in activities that will always remember the Lord. Okay, so now we're going to give you a sub-goal. And the sub-goal is Nishta. Okay, there is the 9 stages of pure devotional service. Starts with faith, Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajana Kriya, then Ananta Nivriti, and then Nishta. So Nishta should be our sub-goal. And Nishta means steady, fixed devotional service. So for example, you all said devotional service, integrated devotional service in our lives. We need to change that. Fixed, integrated devotional service in our life. Paravyoma said devotional service, fixed, steady devotional service in our life. Tanuja said chanting, fixed, steady, regulated chanting. Gurudas said service to devotees, fixed service to devotees. Engage, second say engage in activities that will always remember the Lord. Engage in fixed, steady devotional service. That means not wavering, right? Constant, regular, every day, not once a week affair. It must be regular and fixed, right? Nishta. We need to come to the platform of Nishta. That means solid, steady foundation of devotional practice, which now you have a practical goal. I don't want to be distracted. Prabhupada said, try to remember Krishna, right? And engage in devotional service, move towards the fire, be materially situated so that can happen. And I want to quickly and effectively, efficiently come to Nishta. Once I come to Nishta, a steady platform, then it's easy and sailing to move forward. Yes, it's going to be a little challenging to get to Nishta, but I need to avoid all the distractions. So now, next question, in terms of distraction. What are the different forms of distraction that you can think of, that a devotee may be influenced by, to be distracted, that can cause major, minor destruction of the platform of Nishta, fixed, steady devotional service? So now, name, right, Gurudas said name and fame. Very good. So that's definitely an obstacle, a distraction. You can get so caught up with name and fame that you forget, hold on, what is the objective? Okay, good. Shama says health, family, and work. One becomes so obsessed with health. One becomes so obsessed with family. Every family function, everything that the family does, you're working hard for the family. Everything is focused on a family, 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 family. That can be a distraction. Madhachana Siddhi says, too much eating, unregulated eating, irregular eating habits. So eating can become a distraction. It's interesting. I heard one devotee say, did you know that birds eat practically the whole day? And the reason they eat the whole day is because they have a very short intestines. So they have to pack and finish, It like practically goes in and out. Whereas human beings have a very long intestines and they got a stomach. So when you eat, the food goes there and it's long, so it takes sufficient hours for you to digest, which means you don't need to eat, few times a day. You can survive for quite a few hours so that you can take those hours and spend that hours in Krishna's service. Right. Then, family and social life, yes, can be a distraction. Personal challenges, Amrit Prabhu says, yes, individual challenges. Maybe you can share some of the personal challenges. Unregulated habits can be a distraction. Wealth can definitely be a distraction. Lust, anger, greed, sensory pleasures can be a distraction. Prahlad, you got your hand up. You want to say something?
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Yes, I think social media is also social media.
Social media. Yes, social media. Ki jai. And in fact, social media currently is practically the #1 distractive technology and aspect in people's lives. Just to give you some stats in terms of social media and the distraction and destruction that it causes. America loses around 650 billion every year due to distraction. In a week, 1 day is lost due to social media in terms of workplace. The UK did a survey in 2018 with the youth, and the youth said that they check their phone once every 12 minutes. Most people, the first thing they do in the morning is check their phone. And majority of the people have social media addiction. So this is a challenge. And we're going to speak a little about this specific distraction. Okay. Pravyoma, you have your hand up, and Shamsundar also, you have your hand up.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
I've got my teenage daughter. Her name is Arusha. She just like to
Arusha.
share something.
Please.
Yeah, Arusha, regarding distraction.
Yes, Arusha. Please tell us.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
For me, being a teenager in high school, I would say that my biggest distraction is the fact that I also have to blend in and have to be like, I have to balance my social life and my devotional life. So it is quite hard because I'm a teenager and there's a lot happening around me in high school. So there's so many distractions within my social life. So it is hard to balance both of them.
Good. Now, here's the trick. Do not try to balance material and spiritual. Okay, do not try to balance material and spiritual. In fact, it's not possible to balance, even though people speak about balancing your material and spiritual. Do not try to balance. Balancing material and spiritual is like crossing a river with two boats. Can you cross a river with two boats? One leg in this boat, another leg in that boat. It's not possible. In fact, you may split and you'll fall into the river. So what you need to do is be convinced of spiritual life. If you're convinced that I'm a servant of Krishna and I'm meant to serve Krishna, that means you are now focused. Your life is a life of a devotee. When you convince that this is, you can maybe you can switch, you can unmute, and then we can. So when I ask you, then you can respond, right? I'm going to pin you as well. Right. So why do you want to be a devotee of Krishna?
Yes, I do.
And why do you want to be a devotee of Krishna?
Because I love Krishna and I want to go back to Godhead.
Very good. And if I to ask you from 0 to 10, how convinced are you that you love Krishna and you want to go back to Godhead? That means 10 is the max and 0.
7 and 8.
7 and 8. Okay. So you already convinced you want to be a devotee, you love Krishna and you want to go back to Godhead. Excellent. So you got 7 and 8. So you need to do one exercise. You need to see what is stopping you from going to 9 and 10. Okay. And you make a list of that. What's stopping you? Because you should be on 10. That means I'm convinced I want to go back to Godhead and love Krishna. Nothing is going to sway me, right? No carrots, no toys, no friends, no peer pressure, no new cell phone. Nothing is going to stop me. I'm convinced. When you're convinced, now you're on 7 and 8, which is good. So now you're a devotee first and foremost. And you have a part-time occupation as a student. So being a student is part-time. Full-time, you're a devotee of Krishna. Okay, just like Arjuna is a full-time friend of Krishna. And part-time, he's a warrior. He's doing work of warrior, fighting. Your father is a full-time devotee of Krishna, and part-time, he's got a job and is working to maintain his family. Okay. We need to be convinced that I am a devotee, and all my other duties are secondary. And my secondary duties, like your student, should now help your primary duty as a servant of Krishna. So now when you go to school and you have to study, you can ask the question, okay, why should I study now? So now I want to ask you, why should you study?
So that I can sustain myself in the future and get a good job. So yeah.
Okay, I want you to connect it to your primary occupation. So remember, we said you are now a devotee of Krishna, right? And you love Krishna, you're a devotee of Krishna. That's your original position and full-time position. You are studying, and why should you study? Now tell me why you should study in relation to that point.
So that I could possibly do charity once I I have enough money and all of those things in Krishna consciousness. I can also I can contribute to Food for Life and book distribution and those stuff services.
Good. All right. And complete the statement. Charity begins at
home.
At home. Okay. So charity begins at home. So don't worry about Food for Life. Don't worry about giving donation. Charity begins at home. So you want to go to school so you can get nice grades, so you can get a nice job, so that you don't become distracted and worry about maintaining yourself, so that you can look after yourself in a nice home that is a temple of Krishna, and that you can become Krishna conscious. That is why you need study, right? So in this way, when you see how your studies can help you become a devotee more fixed up, remember the 7 and 8? So you want to keep that 7 and 8. I'm going to study so that my 7 and 8 can go to 9 and 10. And I'm studying so that I can learn something and I can even use my skills to serve Krishna, so I can go to 9 and 10. Now we'll use one more, I'll give you one more example and then we'll continue. So you go to school and your friends tell you, let's go and let's go and have a party, and we're going to eat non-veg. What you going to say?
I will say no, because
Why?
they're not exactly respecting my the fact that I'm vegetarian and I follow a certain path. So
good, very good. See, now you could even relate it to the fact that you're a devotee, right? I am a servant of Krishna. So instead of telling someone, no, I'm a vegetarian, etc., you can now tell someone, you'll have to excuse me, but I only eat that which Krishna eats. And because Krishna only eats prasadam, I only eat prasad because I'm a devotee of Krishna. It's got nothing to do with vegetarian. If Krishna eats some meat products, we'll eat all meat products because that's prasad. But Krishna only eats patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam, leaf, fruit, flower, water. Therefore, I only have that. So this is how you can avoid the distraction in school by being convinced that I'm a devotee of Krishna, and intelligently I can now understand what I should avoid and what I should embrace. And it shouldn't become a distraction of balancing. Don't try to balance anything. Be convinced that I'm a devotee, and all I'm doing is making a decision. Is this favorable for moving to 9 and 10, or not favorable for 9 and 10? Now, I may have weaknesses, right? I may have a weakness, and because of that weakness, I may fall prey, and I may move it to 6 and 7, 6 and 5. Right? And that's why your father is there to say, hey, careful, be careful, keep moving it, don't go down, right? So association helps us to keep it up. Yeah. Is that okay?
yes, thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Prabhu.
Pleasure, Hare Krishna. Right. Okay, let us Go to gallery. Okay, let's see, bad association. So some devotees also said, wealth, unregulated right. Shamananda Prabhu says, bad association, definitely. Okay, good. Okay, let us continue. In scripture, it is described that sadhu sangha, association, especially hearing Krishna Katha, is a very powerful way to keep focused. Now, the challenge is, as we mentioned, social media, phones, is a very powerful way to keep one distracted. Like you'll find, especially, when people are on a webinar or on a Zoom, then they have their phone. And while they, trying to attend the webinar, they're also looking at their phone. That means you are distracted. If you cultivate a habit of distraction, then you're obviously going to keep moving in that direction of being distracted. You don't want to cultivate a habit of being distracted. Because remember, distraction can be very destructive. Slight distraction can be destructive. Can anyone share an analogy that Prabhupada often shares in terms of be very careful and don't be inattentive? Because inattention can lead to destruction or harm. What example or analogy does Prabhupada give? Or you can think of?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Well, this one is come to my mind. Possible. So like in relation with. Okay. Did you hear me?
We didn't. Yeah, your internet's a little sluggish.
Okay, can I say it again? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada once said that spiritual life is difficult, but material life is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I thought of when you said.
All right, but I'm looking for an analogy. So an analogy where if you're inattentive, it can cause harm.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So Shamananda Prabhu says razor blade. So for example, if you're shaving and if you're inattentive, you can get cut. Right? Prabhupada says spiritual life is like a razor's edge. You have to walk on it very carefully because if you're not attentive, you can get cut. So we should be very careful of distraction. And the problem with distraction, firstly, if you cultivate a habit, it's bad. That is why you need good association to always shield yourself or give you feedback. If you have good association, they can warn you, don't do that. Right? Consider if you, okay, we'll come to that. So a razor's edge, one has to be very careful, and feedback is very, very important. As soon as you become distracted and you don't change your habit, it becomes conditioned. You become conditioned and now you basically become habituated. So before it becomes a habit, protect and shield yourself so that you don't fall prey to that. The other thing is that when you become distracted, if you don't have good association, nobody's going to be there to correct you because your mind is not your best friend. Good association will always keep you back on the path. A pilot cannot afford to be distracted. Amrit Prabhu says, yes. A slight 1 degree turn, 1 degree off course, and in an hour, you're in another destination. So therefore, be very careful. Slight, and Maya is very tricky. Maya will see where's that slight gap that I can get in and take over your whole life. Prabhupada gave, Tamakrishna Maharaj gives the example. He and Srila Prabhupada with some devotees were traveling in a train. And in a train in India, they have a seat across, so you can see the passengers across both sides. They're facing each other. So Prabhupada was sitting with some devotees, and on the opposite side, there were a few devotees sitting, and Tamakrishna was sitting on the edge, and the seat, it was full. So a small boy came and stood next to Tamakrishna Maharaj, and looking very like, I need a chair, I need a place to sit, like small boy. So Tamakrishna Maharaj felt, little, compassion. Okay, let me give you some. So the devotee squeezed, right? And there was like a corner little corner on the seat where the small boy could sit. So then the small boy sat, and he was happy. A few minutes later, the boy's sister came. And now the sister is also standing there and looking like, very, I need some, can I get space? So now the devotees were thinking what to do. So then they started moving, and one devotee fell off, and now there was space, and then the girl came. And then the father and the mother came. Before we knew it, all the devotees were on the floor, and the family was sitting on the seat. And Prabhupada was watching all this. When Prabhupada watched this, Prabhupada said, see, that is how Maya comes in. You give a little gap, and then more, and Maya takes you completely off. So we have to be very careful of a slight distraction. Therefore, Prabhupada uses this word, rapt attention. We have to hear with rapt attention. We have to practice with rapt attention. It's very, very important. I'm going to share some quotes in relation to rapt attention. So there was let's see, Bafana Prabhu is still not here. Okay, so maybe this morning, Bafana Prabhu is one of our students in the Bhagavatam class, and he was, in fact, he tried to register, and the registration was full. So then he asked me, can I please make a plan? I want to come to Pretoria. So then we made a plan for him to come. And then this morning, he sends me these pictures. And he says, Prabhu, this is unfortunately what happened this morning. A car came, they were intoxicated and drunk, and they hit into, the vehicle crashed into his home, right, into his office area. So and he says, that the topic distraction can become destructive is very apt here, because they were intoxicated and there was a destruction. So then I asked him, I said, can you please come? And he's actually sent me a message. They're busy fixing there, so he can't obviously leave them. And I asked him, can you tell me, your thoughts? How did you see it? And I like to read what he said. He said, in fact, he first says, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I woke up to this mercy from the Lord to my property. That's how he saw it. He saw it as mercy. So this is focus. This is Krishna consciousness. That even the external environment, because remember, the external environment will cause distraction. Here is a classic example of external environment that can cause distraction. But yet he was not distracted. Somebody, could have been very upset and become, aggressive and do so many, things and become and lose focus. Not even think of Krishna. Start criticizing, complaining. Krishna, why do you, allow this to happen? So many, thoughts would come and get allow us to be distracted. But his consciousness was, this is Krishna's mercy. Extremely Krishna conscious. So this statement says, when we shake off the distractions and criticisms and take a step up, then the all-merciful Lord definitely helps us, as it is said that the Lord takes 10 steps towards us if we endeavor sincerely to take one step towards him. And in this, in relation to this, there's an example of a farmer who had an old donkey. And it so happened that the old donkey fell into a ditch. And the farmer thought, okay, it's an old donkey anyway, forget about, saving the donkey. Let's just cover the donkey. So all the neighbors got together and they took some sand and they started throwing on the donkey. And the donkey started to, make a donkey noise. Whatever donkey noise there, started crying. And then after a while, the donkey was thinking, hold on, why am I crying? So all the donkey did was dropped off the dirt that was being thrown on it and stamped on it. And as the neighbors and the farmer was throwing the sand, the donkey just threw the sand on the ground and stamped on it. And before you knew it, the donkey came up. So we may get many forms of distractions. Here's one classic example of an unfortunate situation, but you can't avoid these situations. You can't control people's activities upon you. But you can control how you respond to the situation. And he responded very favorably, which means Krishna's blessings are upon him, for sure. So in relation to, I'm going to read a few quotes and also discuss this point of rapt attention. In this quote, Prabhupada Bhagavatam 3:26-22, after manifestation of the Mahatattva, these features appear simultaneously. As water in its natural state before coming in contact with earth is clear, sweet, and unruffled, so the characteristic traits of pure consciousness are complete serenity, clarity, and freedom from distraction, which means our consciousness in its natural state is free from distraction. To be distracted is unnatural. To be free from distraction is natural. And as we become more Krishna conscious, you will find that you become less distracted. Like if that situation had to happen, let's say to me, I may have reacted unfavorably. Then after a while, I'll think, actually, I should have thought like this. So Krishna will give us that opportunity to learn. Yes, I will share his contact details to Amri Prabhu. If you want to reach out to him to assist, that would be wonderful as well. I'll give you, just remind me at the end when we finish. And so King Kulashekar has offered 4 activities that should consume all our time without distraction. So now Kulashekar Prabhu is quoting Kulashekar and commenting, King Kulashekar is giving us 4 activities that we can do to avoid being distracted. Offering obeisances to the Lord, worshiping him, chanting his holy name, and thinking of conclusive truths concerning him. If we keep all our time focused on these activities, it will keep us from being distracted. Lord Kapila states, the infatuation and bondage that accrue to a man from attachment to any object is not as complete as that result from an attachment to a woman or to fellowship of men who are fond of women. In Kali Yuga, we are constantly invited to partake in illicit sex through advertising and television. Unrestricted social mixing between men and women is a major distraction from the spiritual path. in a letter, Prabhupada to Jagadish Paniprabhu, my opinion that it is not necessary for us to utilize these different musical talents for spreading Krishna consciousness. I would rather see people follow strictly the path of Lord Chaitanya and his Sankirtan devotees. We are using mridanga, cartels, that is enough. We are not musicians. We are Krishna bhaktas. Therefore, we do not stress so much importance on these different musical talents. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is God himself. Had he thought it would have been better to spread Krishna consciousness by other ways, he would have done so. But no, simply with mridanga and cartels, traveling and chanting Hare Krishna, asking everyone to chant Hare Krishna, simply preaching simply Srimad Bhagavatam philosophy. That is the process. There is no need for us to try and add anything to this simple method. It will only be a distraction. So here's a very subtle form of distraction, which can happen even in devotional circles. Here the devotee is saying, Prabhupada, can we use all these different musical instruments for kirtan? Right? And somebody will say, well, there's no harm. I mean, we're chanting Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada said, no, stick to what Prabhupada has given us. Simple method, mridanga, cartels. Don't complicate the process. If you complicate the process, Prabhupada says it will only be a distraction. Therefore, I request you to follow the simple path of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and help me spread this wonderful mission all over the world. Keep yourself pure and fixed up in Krishna consciousness by following the basic principles that I have given. Chant 16 rounds daily, follow the 4 principles, rising early, attending Mangalarti and classes, etc. This is of utmost importance. So that distraction will also be a very subtle form of distraction that can cause obstacles. In terms of rapt attention, very, very beautiful statement by Srila Prabhupada in purport 1344. That is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. One should hear with rapt attention from the real person, and then he can at once realize the presence of Krishna in every page. The secret of knowing Bhagavatam is mentioned here. No one can have rapt attention who is not pure in mind. No one can be pure in mind who is not pure in action. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. But somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person, that at the very beginning one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of the Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada is bringing rapt attention, focus, not getting distracted, right down to a practical level in terms of the eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. How pure are these activities? If you are pure in your eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, you will be able to have rapt attention. So now we have other reasons. And if you take, for example, somebody said, Madhachana Siddhi said, overeating. So if your eating is not pure, right, that means you're going to be distracted. If your sleeping is not pure, you're going to be distracted. If your fearing is not pure, you're going to be distracted. If your mating is not pure, you're going to be distracted. So to have rapt attention, we have to focus on these activities. Here's another wonderful statement. A pure devotee is never very anxious to go back to kingdom of God. He entirely depends on the goodwill of the Lord. He is equally satisfied even if the Lord desires him to go to hell. The only desire that a pure devotee entertains is that he may always be in rapt attention with thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord regardless. Vishwamitra wanted this very much, that his mind be absorbed in thinking of the Lord and that he pass away thus. That is the highest ambition of a pure devotee. So if you want to be ambitious, embrace this ambition that I always want to think of Krishna with rapt attention. And any activity, like here we find Bafana Prabhu, this morning went through this unfortunate situation, right? He didn't, it's not like he prompted it. It was beyond his control. And it came upon him, but he was still able to think of Krishna. So even though it was a tragedy, the fact that he was thinking of Krishna and thought that this is Krishna's mercy meant that this activity did not distract him, and it proved his level of Krishna consciousness. And Krishna would reciprocate. Okay? That even though he had a setback, but because of his Krishna consciousness, Krishna would make so many arrangements that he would overcome this challenge, and he was Krishna conscious. It didn't distract him. It didn't allow him to lose faith. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing again, and I'm going to cover some other aspects or points. All right, so we covered quite a few sources. Social media, be very careful. Like you get your phone. So you may say, I'm going to use social media and I'm going to use the phone, but be very careful. You should use social media and the phone. Don't let social media and the phone use you. Don't let social media and the phone consume you. Okay? You should be in control. Be very careful. Just like somebody says, no, don't worry. You give me a bottle, I'm in control. I know my limits. Then they start drinking. And before you know it, the drink overtakes them. And now the bottle is controlling them. So be very careful. Excuse me, of our limits. And that's why, in fact, in terms of social media and phone, so in the early days, in the 70s, there was no phones like how we have now. And Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. So in Vrindavan, there was only one phone, and that was in Loi Bazaar. And the devotees, they thought, you know what, Prabhupada will be so happy if we put a phone in his room. So the devotees made arrangements, and they put a phone in Prabhupada's room. So there was a phone in Prabhupada's room, and there was a phone in Loi Bazaar. Only two phones in the whole of Vrindavan. Now, in order to test the phone, the devotees had to go to Loi Bazaar and phone Prabhupada. So the devotee went to Loi Bazaar and he phoned Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada picked up the phone. Hare Krishna, this is Bhaktivedanta Swami. Okay, how can I help you? What do you want? And the devotee said, Prabhupada, this is so and so, and I'm just testing the phone. Prabhupada said, it works. Take this phone out immediately. So Prabhupada said, it works now, take this phone out. He didn't want the phone. Why? Because it's a distraction to his focus. It's a distraction to his bhajan. Prabhupada also says, ringing is a distraction. Take it out. So just see, the devotees thought it would be nice service. Prabhupada said, no, it's a distraction. And here we are, we are happy that the new model is coming out. Be very careful. These technologies can be used only if you're detached. It can be used nicely in Krishna's service. If you're attached, it can consume you and destroy you. So be very careful. And the technology is not going to stop. Now we're coming to metaverse. We're coming to virtual reality, augmented reality, where people can now fantasize and go into these virtual realities, and the extent of sense gratification is unlimited. But you're not going to be satisfied. And Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavatam, our perfection can be measured to how much we are satisfied. If you are satisfied, and what satisfies you? Only pure devotional service, sarva dharma, paro dharma, this supreme occupation of pure devotional service to Adokshaje, to the Supreme Lord. That will satisfy you. Otherwise, no other thing will satisfy you. All right. Okay, I like to now cover some examples. So who can share or quote or type from the scriptures? Give me examples of devotees, personalities that have become distracted. So the examples in the scriptures are for us. And Krishna may use pure devotees even as examples of those that are becoming distracted. So give me examples of devotees that have become distracted. Right, Vishwamitra, very good. Vishwamitra became distracted. He wanted power, fame. He had many motives. He became distracted. Sense gratification. Menaka distracted him also. Good. Any others?
Was it King Parikshit? Was he also?
How did he become distracted?
I think when he went into, I think when he was told that, that he was going to die, or
okay, good. So let me take King Parikshit's example. Now, King Parikshit, he was such a powerful devotee that he subdued Kali, and he was ready to, kill Kali. And Kali took shelter of his lotus feet and said, "No, you can't kill me because I've taken shelter of you. It's your duty to protect me." So he said, "Okay, you should stay where there's illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, meat eating." And Kali said, "Well, these things don't exist, so I can't stay anywhere. Please give me shelter." And Maharaj Parikshit said, "Okay, you can take shelter where there's gold." So Kali took shelter in the helmet, which was gold. And because of that helmet, Maharaj Parikshit was influenced and distracted. Then he went, garlanded sage with a snake, and he got cursed. But when he got cursed, he did not become distracted. He became focused that, okay, I'm going to die. I'm not going to counteract, and I'm going to surrender to Krishna. And he went, and by Krishna's arrangement, he was able to hear Bhagavatam, become perfect, to perfect his life. Yeah. So it's an example of distraction and taking advantage and being focused. Janavi says, so Bharat Maj, yes, Bharat Maj also got distracted due to affection. Somebody said family, affection can distract. Ajamil got distracted to opposite gender. So that was a distraction, sense objects. Manigriva and Nala Kuvera, they got distracted. Very good. Excellent.
Hare Krishna. And
yes.
Bilva
Mangal Thakur also got distracted. He got distracted and he was so frustrated with his distraction. He said, "I need to make a solution. I'm fed up of my distraction. I had it. I don't want to be distracted anymore." Okay, what's the solution? Took his eyes out. He got his eyes out. We're gonna conclude with that. After we covered this example, we conclude with that. He got his eyes. So we'll come back to that. King Chitraketu. How was King Chitraketu distracted?
By seeing Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati undressed.
Yes. So Mother Parvati was sitting on Lord Shiva's lap.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
he just made a remark. Oh, only Lord Shiva can do this. So he just made a remark and Parvati took offense. So we also have to be very careful of making remarks, just making statements. If we want to say something, we should say something that's pleasing, beneficial, truthful, not agitating, and scriptural. That is called austerity of speech from Bhagavad Gita. Chota Haridas was traveling with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he got distracted by the gypsies. And Prabhupada in the purport says, just see, Chota Haridas was with Lord Chaitanya. He was with God, and he got distracted. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, even God cannot help you from being distracted. Well, if God can't help me from being distracted, then who is going to help me from being distracted? Only you can save yourself from being distracted. Krishna will not stifle your independence. So if you want to stick to his lotus feet, Krishna will give you that blessing and mercy. If you want to be distracted and not interested in Krishna, even Krishna cannot help you because he will not stifle your independence. Okay. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in fact, in Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Harinam Chintamani, the discussion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Chaitanya, Haridas Thakur, they discuss about the holy name. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur shares the 10 offenses and the 11th offense. And the 11th offense is distraction, is inattention, is to be distracted when chanting the holy name of Krishna, is to be inattentive when chanting the holy name of Krishna. Now, in this category of inattention, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes 3 forms of inattention. The first form of inattention is indifference. That means you're not interested in spiritual life. Right? You're not, you just don't have any inclination for spiritual life. And Prabhupada writes that you have to be determined for spiritual life. If you're not determined for spiritual life, then one is living like an animal, because animals don't have any determination for spiritual life. So we have to be determined for spiritual life. Otherwise, that'll be a distraction. The second form of inattention is laziness, lethargy. And we don't want to be lazy. Right? Like, for example, very often you see when the program starts at 2 o'clock, and you'll see a few devotees there. Then 2:30, a little more devotees. Most devotees will be there for prasad. In fact, all the devotees will be there for prasad. During kirtan, there'll be more devotees, but for prasad, nobody will be late for prasad. So they're not lazy for prasad, but they're lazy to hear. They're lazy for the kirtan, but they're not lazy for prasad. So it's good, but not good enough. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, you should make a list of all your anarthas. Make a list of all your anarthas, all your bad habits, all the things that take you away from Krishna, that what is your determination in Krishna consciousness? Prioritize them, take your top 3, top 5 and work on them, so that we don't become lazy. Jayananda there was no laziness in Jayananda. They asked Jayananda, the devotee that started Rath Yatra, building carts. You see on the chariot of Lord Jagannath, Baladev Subhadra Maharaj, they have a picture. That's Jayananda. And Jayananda was asked one time, Prabhu, how do you make spiritual advancement? He said, I don't know, I'm too busy to think about it. They're so busy, I have no time to think about how to make spiritual. I'm so busy in devotional service. Jayananda, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, he would knock on the brahmachari room, come in, wake up the brahmachari, say, Prabhu, Prabhu, here's a kachori, put it right in his mouth. Here's a samosa, put it right in his mouth. The devotee is sleeping, feeding him prasad. He was very enthusiastic, taking prasad, serving. He was never lazy. The third form of inattention, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes, is distraction itself. So distraction is actually one of 3 forms of inattention. And inattention, which is indifference, laziness, and distraction, is a breeding ground for all other anarthas. Therefore, we have to be very, very careful of not being inattentive, especially when we're chanting the holy name of Krishna. So in conclusion, I will share some aspects like we covered Vishwamitra Thakur. So Vishwamitra Thakur was so determined to stop this distraction that he plucked his eyes out. Just try to contemplate to what degree you have to be convinced, because you know it's going to be painful, and you're taking your eyes out. I mean, that means you're going to be blind. How much conviction and determination you have to say, I had enough of being distracted with the opposite gender. I'm taking out my eyes. Really, firm determination. It's easier for us just to keep our focus on Krishna and forget everything else. But this was Vishwamitra Thakur's determination. And it's explained from that point. He walked to Vrindavan. And from being lusty, having that anartha, and walking all the way to Vrindavan, became a pure devotee of Krishna. Because he was fully convinced. So the first and foremost principle of trying to be distracted is depend on Krishna. Know that Krishna can help you in every situation. Have faith that Krishna can help us. We should sincerely put the effort, but know that we need to depend on Krishna and cry out to Krishna for help. In the Mahabharata, there's the pastime of Bhima. So Arjuna was very expert at singing. Arjuna was expert, in fact, at singing and even dancing. Arjuna learned the art of dancing in the heavenly planets. When he was cursed to become a eunuch. So then Arjuna decided, okay, I'll learn dancing so that when I become a eunuch, I'll be able to dance and teach dancing. So he taught dancing. So Bhima, he wanted to learn singing. So he got a teacher, and the teacher started to teach him singing. And he started practicing at the entrance of Indraprastha. And all the villagers of Indraprastha, and he was singing loudly. Bhima has got a loud voice. He was singing loudly, but his singing was like a disturbance. So the villagers of Indraprastha, they came to Yudhishthira and told Yudhishthira, please tell Bhima to stop singing. The noise pollution is increasing. And Yudhishthira Maharaj was saying, I can't go tell Bhima, you bash me. The only person that can tell Bhima is Draupadi. So Yudhishthira Maharaj went to go tell Draupadi, you please tell Bhima. He's not expert at singing. It's not his occupation. He can't be a good singer. So Draupadi went to Bhim and said, Bhim, see, singing is it's a skill, special skill. And you can't do it here. You have to go in the mountains, in the forest, and practice there. So Bhima was so determined to learn the art of singing that he decided to go to the forest. So he went to the forest, high up in the mountains, went in the forest, and nobody was there, and he's now singing on top of his voice, trying to practice singing. All of a sudden, one day, Bhima found a villager in front of him. And Bhima asked the villager, what you doing here? There's nobody here, what you doing here? And the villager said, I'm going to tell you, but please don't get upset. You are Bhima, please don't get upset. And the villager said, yeah, tell me. Bhima said, tell me, why are you here? He said, see, I'm a farmer and I lost my donkey. And when I heard your singing, I thought I found my donkey and I came here. And Bhima, he thought, okay, looks like, okay, this is not for me. I sound like a donkey. This is not here. I'm stopping. So he stopped. He decided to stop singing. So then he came back to the kingdom. And Yudhishthira Maharaj knocked on his door and said, Bhima, I urgently need you to go to Dwarka and call Krishna before sunset. Please call Krishna before sunset. Yes, brother, I will go immediately. So Bhima leaves in Indrapast and he's thinking, well, maybe I should just eat first before I go. So he gets distracted and he goes to eat. Now Bhima's got a voracious appetite. So he's eating and he's eating. And he eats so much to his satisfaction. Now he thinks, okay, had nice feast, but I think I should take a little rest. So then he goes take rest. I'll just take rest for a few minutes. The few minutes ended up 4 hours. Yudhishthira, and it's about to be sunset is approaching. Yudhishthira Maharaj comes and he sees Bhima, lazy, distracted, sleeping, and he scolds Bhima. I told you to go call Krishna. I need Krishna urgently to come here. I mean, can't you do? He's like scolded him. He's like very upset, and he leaves. Bhima felt so badly that he disappointed his brother, and he starts to cry. And he's begging Krishna, my Lord, please, I'm so sorry. My brother wants you to come, please. And he's starting to tear and cry, calling to Krishna, my Lord, please come. I'm so sorry. And he's crying. Few minutes later, Yudhishthira knocks on the door, opens the door and says, Bhima, Krishna is here. Why are you so humble? You said, you didn't go. Actually, you went to Dwarka and you came back already. Krishna is here already. And Bhima is saying, but I didn't go. And Lord Krishna tells Bhima that Bhima, all your practicing of singing that sounded like a donkey, that didn't attract me at all. But your calling with tears coming from your eyes, from Dwarka, I swam in those tears, crying tears, and I've come. So, this is how we should call out to the holy name. Not be distracted, but crying. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, if you can't cry out to Krishna without distraction, with emotion, with feeling, then cry that you cannot cry. Cry that I'm so fallen that I cannot cry for Krishna. And try to keep one's focus on the holy name. And one can do that by what we call Nam Trataka. So we want to chant because all distractions, every form of distraction, whether it's due to external causes, whether it's due to individuals, whether it's due to the body, mind, whether it's due to natural catastrophe, all forms of distractions can be overcome by the Yuga Dharma of the holy name. And everything can come from the holy name. So we want to chant one mantra at a time. Do not be distracted by the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, you think, I'm a great devotee. I'm so comfortable. It's so peaceful. That's a distraction. Narada Muni got distracted by the mode of goodness. He was in a garden area, forest area, distracted from thinking of Krishna. Do not be in the mode of passion, which means you're thinking of the future mantra, future things, desires. And do not be influenced by the mode of ignorance, thinking of the past, of the mantra that you chanted. So don't think of the future mantra, don't think of the past mantra. Think of the current mantra that you're chanting, one name at a time, and focus on that. Then be careful of your diet. And when I say be careful of your diet, not just what you eat through your mouth, what you eat through your ears, what you eat through your eyes, what you eat through your nose, what you eat through your sense of touch, all your senses. Because what you consume will consume you. What you consume will influence you. So if you're consuming junk food, your consciousness will become junk. So be very careful what we consume. We said be materially settled. At least have a good material position. And if you're in a difficult space, pray to Krishna to give you the intelligence to help you become materially situated. I can vouch from my own personal experience. I've been in the situation where I've been practically on the street, so to speak, 3 times. And in every situation, Krishna made arrangements. Krishna made arrangements. So we should have firm faith in Krishna making arrangements. Surround yourself with powerful association. The stronger the association, the less the distraction. Right. And finally, have your personal time with Krishna early in the morning, nicely as possible, so that it can overcome all other forms of distraction. Okay, I'd like to end there and ask if there are any questions or comments anyone has on this subject or the points we shared.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
No, I'd just like to say thank you for the class. Thank you for the association. It was very insightful. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Pleasure. Thank you. Where are you from, Prahlad?
I'm from Mamelodi.
Mamelodi. All right. Are you connecting from Mamelodi?
Yeah. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hey Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Madachana Siddhi.
Yes, I have a question about Bhim eating a lot. What if while preaching someone told us that tell us that Bhim eat too much, so why should we don't eat that much?
Good. So Madachana series and some devotees we do run from Mauritius. Prabhupada in the beginning, Prabhupada said, just like I mentioned, right? In the beginning of the program, there's only a few people. Then during the class, there's a little more. Then during kirtan, there's a little more. And during prasad, everyone is there. So that is not bad. But if you're serious to go from level 8 to 9 and 10, then you have to hear Krishna Katha. Krishna Katha is extremely important. Shravanadi Jal. It's the water that will nourish the bhakti creeper. It is not devotional service. Let me repeat. It is not devotional service, practical devotional service that will nourish the bhakti creeper. It is hearing and chanting that is Shravanadi Jal. The service is there to keep me focused and engaged, but the hearing and chanting is important. So Prabhupada said any new devotees that come in the beginning, they should eat prasad up to the neck. That means new devotees, we should feed them so much that they dwaddle like a duck out of the temple room. They can't even stand up, because that way they're getting purified. It's a best form of purification. So that is, so it's not that you can't eat up to your neck. No, if you're new bhakta, you have full right to eat till your neck. And we should feed new people. No, more, take more. No, take more, take more. If you're a seasoned devotee, you've been there a few times, or a few years, then prasad should not be your motivation. Hearing Krishna Katha should be motivation. Then if I say, okay, we're having a Sunday love feast program, but there's no prasad, no feast, it's only Krishna Katha. Those who are serious will be there, even if there's no prasad. And even if we just distribute, even though we should have prasad, Prabhupada said every program should have prasad. So then what we'll do, we'll get apples, we'll cut the apple and say, here's your feast. Did you know what the first Janmashtami feast was? So the first Janmashtami feast, Prabhupada had the devotees to stay up whole night and read Krishna book, chapter after chapter. It wasn't like kirtan and it kept away. No. Krishna book, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, the whole night. Then after midnight, Prabhupada said, okay, we're going to break fast. Prabhupada brought some apples. Prabhupada cut the apples in small pieces and gave each one an apple, a piece of an apple. That was how they broke their fast. So if we seasoned, the prasadam is nice, wonderful, it's Krishna, we honor it, but our attraction is Krishna Katha, not the feast. For new people, they should feast. Yeah. So we should feast like Bhima, even more than Bhima, till the neck. Is that okay? Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right. Amrita's Hare Krishna, thank you for excellent discourse. Please be humble reminder. Yes, I'm going to send you the number. You can contact him. His number is, I'm typing that now for you, 323-1851. And his name is Bafana. And you can just tell him, because he was, actually I asked him if he could come on the Zoom, because he said he's not going to miss the Zoom. He's going to come. And I said, okay, can you come and share, your how you reacted? And then he said, no, because the people are coming to fix the gate and that, so he couldn't leave them. So I said, no problem. Yeah, so you can contact him, and if you can support or help him.
Sorry, Prabhu, the number, please. Sorry.
It's see in the chat. I typed in the chat.
Hare Krishna. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to confirm that. Yeah, 81323-8151. Yeah, if you have the capacity, it's always good to serve the devotees. Thank you, Shamananda Prabhu, for your feedback. Tanuja, may Krishna bless you and keep us in your association. Thank you very much for inspirational class. Thank you very much, Tanuja, for your attendance. Yeah. So let us. Yes,
Krishna,
Prabhu.
Sorry. Prabhu, I was standing in for a short while for our temple president who was away, and she made me to make the arrangements for the program. Talking about distraction, and then unfortunately I came down with the flu. So today I was not supposed to make it to the program, but the distraction of the flu actually made, and the COVID, the program being closed, made me actually still be part of the program. So I'm just, by Krishna's mercy, I'm part of the program because it was online. So I'm very grateful for that. But I want to echo the sentiments of the other devotees as well, in terms of thank you very much, Prabhu, for the program. It's always very enriching and informative, especially your slide presentations, and basing everything that you say to Shastra. And I think, that's what's the important takeaway that I can take away, because the one thing is being fixed in Krishna consciousness. And if you don't know what Krishna said, Prabhupada's has translated for you what Krishna has said, and it's in Shastra. Follow that. If don't listen to anyone else, listen to Prabhupada and to Krishna. I think, thank you very much for that. We look forward to your association in person, depending on the situation, if it improves next year. But once again, really on behalf of ISKCON Pretoria, then if no other management devotees on the temple, I'd like to convey my thanks to you and Mataji. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll just mention a little about the COVID situation. But Vishwamitra Prabhu, you got your hand up.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Yeah, just to share the sentiments and to echo the words of Shegran Prabhu. Thank you so much for this enlivening and wonderful class, and for allowing us to have your bliss and your association. And we were really looking forward to sharing this association with you. And it's through Krishna's mercy that we were able to. So on behalf, like Prabhu said, of the devotees here at ISKCON Pretoria, and I think everybody that has your association, thank you so much for that wonderful and sweet nectar of devotion. And pass our love and regards to Madhuri Mataji as well. And you take care and stay safe.
Will do. Thank you, Hare Krishna. So the situation that we are in this world, it is ascribed that it's like a drop of water tottering on a leaf. And that drop of water that's on the leaf, on a lotus leaf, can slide down and slip at any moment. We need to be convinced that our environment is like that. It's not a very comfortable and wonderful situation. Unfortunately, things may get worse or things may get better. Whether it becomes, even if it becomes better, it's still not our home. Our home is the kingdom of God. Our home is Goloka Vrindavan. And we should never lose sight of that. And because we are already in this world, just like I already have this material body, and because I have this material body, with this material body comes what we call prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma means I have to go through that which I got. I got this body, it comes with a set of diseases and unfortunate situations, and I'll have to go through it. Just like my nose. Now, I may look in the mirror and says, I've got such an ugly nose. Too bad. You have to stick with your nose. Now, someone might say, well, no, I can go do plastic surgery. Well, go ahead and do plastic surgery. You're still going to have a nose. It's not going to take you back to Godhead. The point is, we in the material world comes with its prarabdha karma. This age comes with its prarabdha karma. So COVID is something we cannot avoid. There may be World War III, you can't avoid. There may be a financial crash, you can't avoid. There may be conflicts that you cannot avoid. There may be riots that you can avoid. This is the reality. And all these incidents, COVID, war, riots, diseases, conflicts, are meant to be impetus to convince us that we need to surrender to Krishna once and for all. And if we surrender to Krishna once and for all, we will never experience difficulties, challenges, miseries ever again. We are solving, we are making a permanent solution to the problems of life, all the problems. We have to be firmly convinced. To the degree we are convinced, to that degree, there will be no impediment and there will be no obstacle. Just like COVID is a blessing. It's a blessing because we can associate with devotees online across the globe 24 hours a day. There are so many amazing devotees that you can associate with through social media, through online talks. Therefore, it's a blessing. Yes, when we have the opportunity to associate, we take advantage of that. At the same time, there is no excuse. There should be no excuse not to hear about Krishna. And that is why I said, I felt even if we're not having the program, we should still spend some time to hear about Krishna, because that should be our focus. So thank you all for your attendance and your association. I'm looking forward, even when there's COVID, I'm looking forward to the future technology, which they call metaverse. And I've been researching, you can build a temple, a virtual temple. And with technology, you can have technology where you actually now in the virtual reality in the temple, and we can have kirtan, and you can experience the kirtan like you there. Right now, we are experiencing this, let's say, virtual online, but it's you seeing my picture or my face or video, right? And you in your room. It's restricted dimension. The future technology is you'll be able to be sitting with me where I am, and we'll create a temple, and we'll all go into the temple virtually, and you'll be able to experience that there. So that means no social distancing, and that's what's coming. So for us, we'll take advantage of it and be Krishna conscious, whether it's there or not there. The point is, always remember Krishna and never forget him in every single situation, and that will be our blessing. Thank you once again for everyone's association. Thank you, Vidura Prabhu, for your association as well. Maybe you can say some last words of wisdom, Vidura Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Vidura Prabhu is also a senior devotee, very wonderful devotee in Mauritius.
So the challenge to our everyday life, the temptation will be always there. Since morning to the afternoon, we will always be distracted. So we have to make our own effort. All depend upon ourselves. We should not leave a crack. We should not leave the crack. The crack is the problem. The time that you just let's try it for once day. Now the whole problem comes. So it might be at the beginning it is difficult to say no. But at the end of the day, as you grow up, you must learn how to practice saying no. This is the only way that we can progress in our spiritual life. If we want, the age that we have come, I see many on the platform here, the age we are, we should take the spiritual life. Yes, we are taking it seriously. Prabhu has given us many stepping stones of how we can still put things in practice. Hearing is good, fine, very nice to the ear. The class is very nice. But what we carry home, what we do with the knowledge that we have, if there is no inner transformation, Prabhu's class would go in vain. So my humble request is that what we have learned, just see what little point we can put into practice so that we make the little difference. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, that's true.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. A step at a time, right? Just information. This world is information overload. It's plenty information. You can just Google everything. So we don't want information. We want transformation. We want to really apply it into our lives. And we pray and bless everyone that you are able to be focused, not be distracted, and in this way be Krishna conscious, become fully Krishna conscious, and help others become Krishna conscious. So in conclusion, we like everyone to, if you want, you can unmute yourself, and we will chant Hare Krishna one time and offer our obeisances to the devotees of the Lord. All right, so we can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhya kripa sindhubevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Antakoti Vaishnavanda ki jai. Jai Go Pramanandite. So please stay safe and sound and be Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
His Grace Narasimhananda Prabhu ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.